Most people picture genius completely wrong. They picture perfect report cards, a kid who raises their hand for every question, someone who's obviously the smartest person in the room, ideally while also being annoyingly good-looking about it. And honestly, that picture is mostly nonsense. Real intelligence, the kind researchers actually study instead of the kind Hollywood invented, tends to look a lot messier and a lot weirder than that. A lot of genuinely brilliant people would never in a million years call themselves smart, mostly because they're too busy being convinced they're secretly an idiot who's about to get caught. So let's go through what actually tends to show up in people with unusually high cognitive ability. And fair warning, you might recognize more of these in yourself than your self-esteem is prepared for. Sign 1. An almost obsessive level of focus on one specific interest, to the point where it starts looking a little unhinged from the outside. We're not talking casual curiosity here. We're talking about the kind of rabbit hole where someone disappears for 6 hours researching one extremely narrow topic. Not because a test is coming up, but because some invisible force inside their brain simply will not let them stop. Researchers actually have a name for this: a rage to master, which sounds like a wrestling move but is really just what happens when your brain gets a hold of something interesting and refuses to let go. Dignity be damned. Sign 2 directly contradicts basically everything you were told in school, and it's this: being mediocre, or flat out bad, at conventional measures like grades or standardized tests does not rule out genius. In a lot of cases, it's shockingly common among people with genuinely exceptional minds. Traditional schooling rewards being decent at everything all at once, on command, on a Tuesday morning, in a very specific format. A lot of highly intelligent people have brains that are narrow and absurdly deep instead of broad and balanced, meaning they can be genuinely extraordinary in one specific lane while being spectacularly, almost impressively unremarkable at everything else. Several people we now consider historical geniuses were, by conventional school standards, kind of a mess. Sign 3 is the ability to connect two things that have absolutely no business being connected. This is called associative thinking, and it's one of the traits most reliably linked to both intelligence and creativity in actual research. It's that mental habit of noticing a structural similarity between, say, how ants organize a colony and how traffic moves through a city, and instinctively wondering if one could explain the other. Most brains keep their categories in neat, separate little boxes. Highly intelligent brains apparently did not get that memo, and the categories just leak into each other constantly, often at extremely inconvenient times, like during a dinner conversation that was supposed to be about literally anything else. Sign 4 is a strong combination of working memory and fast pattern recognition, which sounds very clinical until you realize it just means being annoyingly good at holding 5 complicated things in your head at once while also noticing the hidden pattern nobody asked you to look for. This is one of the most heavily weighted components in actual intelligence testing, specifically because, unlike trivia, you genuinely cannot cram for it the night before. Sign 5 is being weirdly comfortable with not knowing the answer. Most people hate uncertainty so much they'll grab the first semi-reasonable explanation just to make the discomfort stop, even if that explanation is wrong. Highly intelligent people seem to have a much higher tolerance for sitting in that uncomfortable, unresolved, I genuinely don't know yet zone, sometimes for embarrassingly long periods of time, without needing to fake a tidy conclusion just to feel better. This is basically the entire job description of advanced mathematics and research science, where the correct answer, disturbingly often, is, we're not sure yet. Keep looking. Sign 6 is the most ironic one on this entire list. Persistent self-doubt, sometimes escalating into full-blown imposter syndrome, shows up more in highly intelligent people, not less. This connects to something called the Dunning-Kruger effect, where people who don't know much about a topic tend to wildly overestimate how good they are at it, because they don't know enough to realize how much they don't know. People who are genuinely excellent at something tend to do the exact opposite. They're painfully aware of the entire vast ocean of stuff they still don't understand, which makes them constantly underestimate themselves relative to that impossibly large scope. In short, the smarter you actually are, the more likely you are to secretly suspect you're a fraud, which is either deeply unfair or the universe's best joke, depending on your mood that day. Sign 7 is divergent thinking, which is just a fancy way of saying you come up with several weird, unconventional answers to a problem instead of immediately grabbing the obvious one. Old-school intelligence testing was almost entirely obsessed with convergent thinking, finding the one single correct answer as fast as possible. But modern research treats divergent thinking, generating a pile of different, creative possible answers, as an equally important marker of exceptional cognitive ability, closely tied to both intelligence and genuine creative output. So here's the actual takeaway hiding underneath all of this chaos. Intelligence was never really one tidy number. No matter how much we'd all love a single score to settle the argument at parties, it's a messy cluster of traits that often contradict each other on paper. Obsessive focus paired with narrow brilliance. Associative thinking that won't shut off. Strong working memory. Weirdly high comfort with not knowing things. Chronic self-doubt. And a habit of generating solutions nobody asked for. And most people who genuinely have several of these traits never stop to consider they might actually be exceptionally intelligent, because none of it looks like the version they were taught to expect growing up. So if you read through this list and quietly, uncomfortably recognized yourself in more than one or two of these, that little flicker of recognition is probably worth paying more attention to than the imposter syndrome is currently allowing you to.